maybe you've experienced this in your own relationship, or as you've been having partner after partner, that you think, oh my gosh, this should work. What is happening? I don't understand why it's not working. On paper, everything looks great, or in the beginning, we had such a great dynamic, but then everything just crumbles. And there could be that there's either patterns of conflict, of disconnection, or emotional distance. And even, when you think, oh my gosh, I love him, but it just feels off. So love isn't always enough. If we keep acting out old survival strategies, it won't matter. So that's what we're gonna talk about today. So again, could you just put in the chat if you can hear me well, so that I just know and have confirmation that people can hear me actually. Yes. And this webinar will help you to identify hidden dynamics sabotaging connection, understand where these patterns come from, learn how to break free from old roles, and start creating the connection you truly want. So it's going to be really, really helpful for all those things. All right. So let me just push this over here. Move. Yes, perfect. So just a little bit about me. So I'm a dating and relationship coach since 2019. I'm working online with clients, and I also now support struggling families in my local area. So I work with kids who have ADHD or autism or just behavioral issues, and where the parents are divorced or disconnected, and help the family system basically recover, gain new connection, gain new understanding, learn communication skills, and so on. And I'm really passionate about this work. And I'm the founder of the Conscious Relationship School. And if you want to find out more, just visit my website, veronikamaya.com. All right. So you can also join this presentation if you want, and answer questions, and also win a prize for a quiz at the end. So you can go ahead, scan the QR code, or go to manchild.com and enter the code. It's completely anonymous. You don't have to put in any data. It's really just a way to connect. Usually on these webinars, we're a bit more people, so it always depends how many people join. Then it's more fun, obviously. But yeah, it's totally up to you, of course. And the instructions will also remain up here so you can see them. Exactly. So in one word, how would you describe the feeling of being stuck in a toxic relationship? And you can, of course, also answer in the chat. So in one word, how would you describe it? Helpless, sad, angry, powerless, confusing, painful, anxiety, depression. Yeah, totally. I know these feelings very well. Not now anymore because of Matt, which is really good. But yeah, I've been there many times. Trapped. Wow, that's a big one as well. Emotionally numb, headache, isolated. Yes, 100%. Sad. Yes, totally. Yes. Those are all the feelings. And the thing is that we as human beings, we are social species, which really means that we are made for connection. We are made to be in groups. We are made to be with people. So if our main romantic relationship feels like that, it's really for our whole system so devastating. And it's said that people die of heartache, and it's definitely true, because even to be healthy, you need healthy relationships in your life. So that's why I'm also passionate to talk about this subject, because I want to help people get to that point where, they get into the state again of having supportive and healthy relationships. Okay, thanks guys so much for this. So what do you usually do when a relationship feels emotionally disconnected? I try harder to fix things. I shut down and keep it to myself. I become critical or controlling. I leave or threaten to leave. I pretend everything is okay. So how is it for you? In the chat, you can also put number 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5, just to show the answers. Okay. 2 people have said I shut down and keep it to myself. Okay, everyone, there's a reaction of everything. For me personally, I'm definitely a fixer, so I'll try harder to fix things. I also become critical or controlling. Matt can tell you a tale of that. And maybe also, if it's really intense, I would threaten to leave. Yeah. Okay, interesting. So most people have said I try harder to fix things, or I leave or threaten to leave.
Maybe I share my perspective. I won't tell stories about Veronika in the past, though. I think my one is more, I shut down and keep it to myself. I think that's more me. Pretend everything's okay, a little bit like this. That's a bit my family patterns.
Yes, that's true. And I'm more the aggressive, I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna fix it, like type, totally. And both is equally unhealthy, you know, because if you just push everything under the rug, then you can also get very sick. And of course, you can't change things. And I become aggressive, or I overfix a relationship that's just not working out, which is also very important. You have to understand when when you're not compatible. Okay, guys, thank you so much again for answering. All right. So let's get into the topic. So what are toxic relationship dynamics? I think that's pretty clear. It's been talked about a lot now on social media, which I think is a really good thing. And really, it's a relationship dynamic where we fall into unconscious roles that are mostly from childhood or past relationships. And this can really feel like you're acting out and that almost something takes over your body and you really can't control it. And to me, it's always like actually so crazy when a couple comes to me that have been maybe together for, like, I'm just coaching a couple, they have been together for 5 years, and the way they talk about each other is so vicious and disappointed. It's really like they talk about their enemy. And I'm always thinking, wow, how does it come to that point? And it's basically because a lot of fear, control, shame, and power struggles are triggered because we are reminded of childhood, and things that went wrong and how we had to protect ourselves. So we project a whole lot of these old unhealed wounds from childhood onto our partner. And when I talk about childhood wounds, I don't just mean, someone who has been horribly abused and beaten or neglected. I really mean, for example, very middle class upbringing, right? Like your dad always made you feel like you're not good enough in a very subtle way, or your mom was overly controlling and just really you felt like you couldn't breathe around her, right? Those are dynamics that most people I know have experienced. And they are not equally, of course, right? I mean, if you've been horribly abused, that's really terrible. But those are, for a human, those are things that make you suffer. And if you have not healed those, they will play into your adult relationships. And this is really not at all about bad people, but just unhealed patterns. And for example, this couple that I'm coaching, both of them individual, I really like them. They are wonderful people, morally, they're doing everything to be good people, but then to each other, they are horrible. They are so mean. They are so nasty. And that is this toxic dynamic that we talk about. And we really need to also see it like a dynamic. Of course, in some couples, there is more predator victim dynamic, 100%, right? There are abusive dynamics where one partner clearly is the one who is super abusive and the other one is really just taking it in. But in most dynamic, most couples, both are doing to each other something that creates this dynamic. For example, one person can never stop fighting and so on. I will get into this. So that's why we want to judge the pattern or be aware of it, but not the person. All right. So now I want to get into those 6 dynamics that I have found. And of course, they're not exclusive. And I'm talking about men and women here because I coach heterosexual couples or individuals. You can just translate them, like woman, you can just translate into feminine pole, and man into masculine pole. So in a gay relationship, you would most likely have this, that one partner is a bit more feminine in their energy and expression, and one is more masculine in their expression. All right. So the quote here would be, how such a couple would feel would be, she's exhausted from holding everything together. He feels undermined in his own home, and his only refuge is to pull away. Okay. So maybe if some of you have already experienced this, you can also put it in the chat. Then we have a similar dynamic, and I've put them together because they have lots of similarities. And that would be, every word she speaks feels like a verdict. Every silence he offers feels like a wall neither of them can climb. And that is the hypercritical woman and the silent man. Okay, so what are these dynamics exactly? Let's get into it. So in both of these dynamics, you have a woman that is more dominant than the man. And as you can imagine, this dynamic gets joked about a lot, you know? Like you say, oh, she's the one, she's wearing the pants in the relationship, or you know who's ruling in the home and stuff like this. And yeah, that's exactly true. If you look at it from a sort of like an energetic perspective, she is in the leading role where the man is more in the passive role. With the man-child and the controlling woman, this dynamic, it's you can imagine, for example, I knew a couple and where the guy was also a bit younger than her. I think he was maybe 6 years younger. And when you would meet them, he would speak very little, but he would still speak a little bit. And you could tell that she was making all the decisions. Like, for example, when they would get married, he basically wasn't allowed to even say anything about the colors or the location. Like, she had it under control. And when he would say something, she would often say things like, oh, you're so silly. Like, you don't understand it anyways. Oh, let me do it, you know, kind of like that. Like, let mama do it, right? Like, that was the undertone. Also in that dynamic, it became apparent that he actually had a really big gambling problem. And this, you can so often see it in those dynamics, because basically what happens when a woman and a man are like this together is that the man feels so undermined, which goes such against the pride of him, that he will revert to any kind of unhealthy behavior. It could be gambling or porn addiction or shopping addiction, or also maybe getting into massive fights when he's drunk, because it makes a man incredibly aggressive and angry if a woman treats him like that. And the thing is that, again, where this comes from is that he will probably have a very domineering mother, or never grew up. So he will stay a child basically forever. And so he unconsciously, this is all unconscious, right, guys, looks for a woman that is his mom. And on the other side, of course, what could be very annoying traits of him is that he expects her to make him like a sandwich, or, he can't even pack his own lunch. He expects her to tell him what to do with all his decisions, or what to wear, or he's going to be like cranky when he comes home from work, and basically expect lots of caretaking. And again, you find them in all kinds of variations. I mean, it's a spectrum, right? It could be very extreme examples and very, very tiny, just parts of a relationship could feel like that. But again, it's really helpful to be able to pinpoint also when you have this. And where this comes from basically is that the woman, she probably grew up in a very unsure home environment. She felt a lot of unsafety. So her survival strategy is to control everything. And so she unconsciously looks for a man that she can control. And maybe she also feels really good if she takes care of someone, right? So she falls into that pattern. Then the hypercritical woman and the silent man are in many respects very similar. So the woman, again, is very dominant. The man is quite passive. The difference here, however, is that you can really see in a communication pattern that she literally talks 90% of the time and he only 10. And she will often complain that he is not opening at all and really doesn't communicate with her at all. He doesn't talk about his feelings. He never gives his opinion. And she basically feels super alone in the relationship. And this, I have observed, you can more see it in the older generation. It would be the typical thing of the grandpa who never says a word, at the dinner table, or, where the woman is just like talking so much. And I definitely have some examples in my family that are like this. And again, the deeper dynamic, exactly. And often it's also that the woman then is criticizing every little thing that the man does. And that's also why he shuts down and shuts down and shuts down. So it could be that she just talks a lot and it's just too much for him and she doesn't leave any space. But it could also additionally be that she just is so critical of him. And the crux here is that she actually wants to connect with him. And through communicating more and even criticizing him, she tries to fix the relationship. But of course, for him, it just feels like a constant attack to him. And so his protective survival strategy is just to shut down because he feels that what she wants is communication. And so he can punish her by not giving it to him. And again, the hypercritical is a survival strategy because basically it's like an attack. So if I constantly attack other people, they are much less likely to criticize me. So it's often people actually who are super afraid of criticism themselves that become hypercritical. And I know a bit this mechanism because I used to have it. And still when I'm like unconscious and I'm stressed, I can like fall into this. And this can really crush a man like so much. And it can rob him of his confidence at work. It can rob him of everything. And again, guys, I just want to say as well that this could totally be the opposite, right? So it could be that, you can just exchange man and woman. But that's just what I've seen in my coaching practice in these modern times more of. And again, also, I understand I coach more conscious people. So that the man is a bit more sort of like passive and emotionally open is also, or no, not, they are not emotionally open. But what I mean is if the guy is a bit more passive, this is also a little bit more of like a modern sort of like development. Exactly. And yes, and all of this creates a cycle of criticism and withdrawal. And so basically, if you want to resolve this dynamic, you have to, on both sides, work on emotional maturity. That means that the man has to learn how to grow up and set boundaries in a really strong way. So if and I have guys like this all the time come to me, I always work with them on speak your mind, know your values, know your boundaries. You have to tell her what's not working for you. And this is so important because you can see with these guys all the time, they don't just struggle with their woman, they struggle in all aspects of life. They're often the ones who can't stand up to their boss, to their colleagues, to their family, to their mothers. It's such a painful pattern. And honestly, this, if a man does not change this can lead to such deep depression. It's really, really a problem. So yeah, I'd be really interested to know if you have maybe experienced this in your own life or have maybe seen it in your friends group or, you know, family, such this dynamic. Yes, and so and for the woman, what she needs to do is to work on her controlling and critical behavior, because again, this is not doesn't just affect the man, but will affect everybody around them, also the kids, you know, everyone, and to learn how to be more relaxed, not take everything so seriously, trust your man that he can do things, you know, you don't have to control him. And also that if you want to a man to communicate with you, you have to give him space. Like I do this very simple exercise with my female clients, which is literally when you ask him a question, you just wait. You know, you just say, "Hey, darling, how was your day?" And then you just wait and you just look at him and you slowly let him answer. And women are really not aware that they are so quick to jump in. And this simple thing can change so much in the dynamic, because women often don't realize that we just have a different way of communicating than men, and they need more space. It works really well with kids, by the way, as well. And then, of course, safety has to be rebuilt, because as I said, like the woman feels basically left alone and like the guy is not stepping up. So that's unsafety for her. And the man feels like she is completely out of line, completely disrespectful, and completely just overstepping his boundaries like all the time. Yes. Okay. Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to go to the next one and then I'm going to see the chat. Okay. So how easy is it for you to express what you really feel in a relationship? So, and how easy is it for you to recognize if someone is a potentially toxic partner? And how easy is it for you to walk away from a toxic dynamic? It would be awesome if you could answer that. And I wanted to also say something that it takes so much guts for us to recognize our own negative patterns. And I can tell you that if you want to have a really, really good relationship, it will be one of the most important things that you can do, that you really recognize what you're not good at and what is your negative pattern. Like for me, I completely own that I have controlling tendencies, that I can be super anxious and lash out on my partner, that I have the tendency to snipe, to make him responsible, although he's not responsible. And it helps me because it helps me to keep myself in check. And then, of course, my partner also owns what he does wrong. But honestly, like it's so positive if you know what is your unhealthy pattern and you can own it. And it doesn't mean, again, that your partner is excused, but it could change so much in your life. Okay, so to all these questions, it seems like it's a middle. So kind of like middle. So I think that people are here who already have done some relationship work, which is really cool to know. Okay, very cool. So Matt, you can also interrupt me when there's a good question, and then I'll answer it.
I think not really any questions, they've already been answered. But I want to say I'm really enjoying this presentation. It's been a while since we've done this one. Veronika used to put these pictures up of the different, like the emotionally abusive woman. A nice guy, she had these great pictures. I'm a bit upset they've gone in this presentation. Do you remember?
Oh, I forgot it. Yeah, I basically made it a bit new. Okay, I will put them in, Matt. No problem.
Okay.
When
No, it's really fun. Yeah, yeah. It's a nice presentation because I think everyone can relate to it in some way, whether it's themselves directly or people that they know. So It's really special. It's nice for me also to reflect because, as Veronika says, we've been through lots of these dynamics in the past and we still have some of them. So it's nice to be open and remember them and remember the things that we've done to help ourselves move through these patterns as well. So I'm really enjoying tonight. So thank you.
Oh, thanks, babe. I really appreciate it. Yeah, totally. That's the thing. It's so powerful to know what are my shadows. Can I own them? All right. So we're going to move on to the emotionally abusive woman and the nice guy. So with nice guy, I mean a concept that has been developed by a really cool American psychologist, and it means a man who has very bad boundaries, who always wants to be the nice one, the good one, who always wants to be helpful, and who tries to win other people's affection and appreciation by pleasing, by being, oh, like never saying no. And he does the same with the woman. He tries to please her constantly, not saying what he really wants and just try to figure out what she wants. That sounds all very nice on paper. The problem with this is that it's not real kindness. It's actually just to avoid conflict, to avoid problems, and it will bite him in the butt. What we really want is a man who is, of course, kind and has a really big heart, like my husband, but who also can say no, that's not working for me. This is enough. Stop this now. Who can stand up for himself and who can voice his opinion. Super important, right? As, of course, for women as well. But in this dynamic, you can really see how this plays out because nice guys like this often then attract emotionally abusive women. And this is a woman who is out of control with her emotions. You could maybe say in extreme forms, she has like borderline or manic depression. And she will just lash out on him because he doesn't have any boundaries. So the quote here is, she lashes out to feel in control. He hides behind kindness to avoid conflict, but loses himself in the process. And so this and how the relationship here looks out, that this would be guys that come to me and say, I don't understand what's wrong with her. I'm always doing everything for her and she just spits in my face. She has this rage, these fits. She's just raging at me and sometimes she even slaps me, right? I've had people who literally told me that their woman slapped them. And of course, in the less severe cases, it could just be that when she's angry, she mocks fun at him, she pokes at his weaknesses, And again, in turn, then often what the nice guys develop is again that they, for example, do everything for other people and are rarely home, so they avoid her. Or they never want to talk about problems because they want to avoid conflict. Or again, they develop any sort of like addictive behavior secretly, And very often in this dynamic also, they have not a good sex life because it's just unhealthy. First of all, with the emotional abuse that's happening, but also because the man is so passive that it's really difficult for the woman to feel attraction. And underneath all of these are deep wounds around vulnerability and power. So if a woman is so emotionally abusive, like out of control, usually she has been wounded in the past, has maybe grown up around emotionally immature or unhealthy adults, never learned how to navigate her own emotions and how to regulate herself. And she just feels incredibly insecure and anxious in the world, but also really angry. And then the anger also gets projected against the nice guy because she wants actually someone to hold on to that gives her safety, but he can't, right? Because he doesn't have any boundaries. And the other way, the same thing. Like he probably grew up around emotionally intense women. He always found that the best way to survive was if he would people please and be really, really nice and kind. But actually, underneath, he's boiling. He's so angry, and he actually also hates the woman. And so he, yeah, either develops some very unhealthy hidden behaviors, or he could also get like super depressed, basically. And yeah. And so again, as you could see, like just a super, super toxic dynamic and really unhealthy for relationships. And in this case, both partners need to reclaim healthy boundaries and emotional responsibility. So everyone has to be responsible for their emotions. Emotions are not wrong, but it's not right to lash out on other people. And also, it's incredibly important for your life, to learn how to keep your emotions in check. And it's really, really interesting because the nice guy often will not recognize this pattern at all. Because, of course, it's with all of these passive dynamics where the guy is really passive, men usually feel cringe, to even think about it because it makes them feel weak, which I can totally understand. The problem, however, is that, again, if you can't recognize it, you can never, ever change it. And it's such a strong thing to realize that, oh my gosh, I have an issue with boundaries, because when you then start setting it, it will honestly like transform your life. Okay, very good. Now, let's move on. So as you could see, before now, these three dynamics, we were more in the realm of passive man domineering woman, right? So the man is a bit more the victim and the women a bit more the predator, we could say. Although it's, as I said, it's always a dynamic between two people, right? Now we're going to switch it, and we're going to look a little bit more into when the woman is more the victim, the man the more predator, or the women more passive, the man more domineering. Okay, so I call this the fatally faithful woman and the Playboy. She waits, hoping he'll finally choose her. He savors her loyalty, knowing she'll stay no matter how far he strays. All right, so I can imagine that this one is sort of like, sorry, and then we have also this one as well. Hopeful woman and the uncommitted guy. She sees all they could be if you just take the next step. He enjoys the closeness, but the thought of forever makes him back away. So again, I put them together because I find that they have a lot of similarities, but they are still a little bit different. So the fatally faithful woman is a woman who is basically, they are both women that are kidding themselves in a really strong way about the partner that they're with. They are hiding the truth. Like when I coach women like this, they always deep down know what's going on. They know it, but they're lying to themselves because they're holding on to the hope that maybe at some point he'll change. And I can tell you from my professional experience, in 99% of the cases, this hope will never, ever happen. It is not going to happen. And I call this being in love with the potential. The women often, they can see the potential of this relationship, and it could be so amazing. It could be so wonderful if he would only change. And then they often, do a lot of courses and coaching and all that stuff because they just don't want to let it go. And with the fatally faithful woman, she will be maybe from her type, let's say maybe a little bit more naive, or often also a little bit more someone who has really been deeper traumatized, because basically the guy is really just hooking around with others, either not telling her or even telling her, and she just accepts, that he sleeps around, he does his thing, he goes to the club, he drinks a lot, he has a lot of fun, people know he's a playboy, and she just, is basically there 4 a.m. in the morning. He calls her, hey, baby, you awake? She's like, yeah, I'm awake. And then he comes around and, and they have a few hours together and then he goes off again. Like that's the dynamic. And that could be for 10 years, stringing her along. And she just thinks and also something about it gives her like a really good feeling because she's like, oh my gosh, if I can tame the Playboy, I had a friend's one that was so strong like this, and she actually married a guy. It was not a good idea. Then we also have the hopeful woman and the uncommitted guy. And that is a bit different because this man is not necessarily like a playboy or like sleeping around. He will just not be committed. So his thing is always like, it would be a guy who maybe is has a lot of own hobbies, is maybe often in nature, or has some sort of like geeky thing he's interested in. He maybe will be lots on conventions or has lots of trips with his friends. Again, not necessarily sleeping with other women, but he also doesn't want to be in a relationship. He is always like, no, let's just keep this easy. Let's just keep this chill. You're chill, right? And she sort of like says, yeah, everything is chill. Everything is chill. But actually, she really wants a deep relationship with him. And so it's a little bit less, usually, let's say, intense than the other dynamic, but still, really toxic because basically she could be wasting her best years with a man who just doesn't want the same things. And again, here, I would say with the Playboy, yes, you could morally judge that he is not a good guy, but with the uncommitted guy, it's not necessarily that he's a bad person. He just she doesn't want to see the truth about him. And again, with those two, totally right, guys, you can totally also take it the other way around, that that could be a girl who is just enjoying herself and has fun or doesn't want to commit. That's totally possible and totally happening. I just chose it this way because I see it a little bit more that way. And here the thing is that usually the men here have deep commitment issues. I mean, the Playboy could be that he literally just enjoys having lots of women, but especially also the uncommitted guy, they usually have super, super strong abandonment wounds and or enmeshment wounds. It means that someone was always so close in their space, controlling them, telling them exactly what to do, telling them how to feel, what to think, that they are terrified of any intimacy with anybody. So one of the next webinars I'll do will be on attachment styles, and that would be the typical avoidant attachment. And often then the woman is anxious attachment, which means someone who really wants a relationship, who wants to spend all the time together. And so they just clash and can never come together. But the problem is also that there's often a really big attraction between the two. And so I have often women come to me, that are like, oh my God, I love this guy, I want to make it work. And I'm like, you realize he's avoidant attachment. Like it's very easy for me to pinpoint. And I have to really work with them on understanding that this attraction often comes from the unhealed emotional wounds and is not necessarily a sign that you are destined to be together, because these are then often also the spiritual women who believe in soulmates or twin flames, and I have to really tell them, like, I think it's a trauma bond and not actually attraction. Yeah. And so that's why the guys have to heal the fear of engulfment, so the fear of enmeshment, and to learn that it's okay to have a more intimate relationship with someone, that you can still have yourself, that because the feeling for them is that someone will eat them, they will like consume them. So you can have boundaries also within a relationship. And the woman, they have to basically, first of all, see the truth about, whoever they're dating, and also choose someone who wants the same things as them. Yeah. And sometimes it could be that this dynamic changes, but again, very often not. Usually what happens is that they will break up And then maybe the guy will make some developmental steps and sort of like heals his fear of enmeshment and then find someone that he actually wants to settle down with. But if it's this dynamic, usually it won't happen. Okay. Very good. Okay. And so this is the last dynamic now. So this is the passive woman and the domineering guy. She stays quiet to keep the peace, slowly disappearing from her own life. He takes control to feel safe, never noticing she's fading. As you can already see, this dynamic is the classic, dynamic out of the books from the past, where the woman is just totally giving control off to the man, doesn't have an own opinion, doesn't have her own life path or interests or hobbies. She just lets the guy make all the decisions, and she's just like a wet towel, in the wind, lets herself be blown around. And again, this could, of course, be from totally abusive, the guy, like hitting her even, to just maybe her not really knowing what she wants. And so she's sort of like happy to just let him, who is confident, make the decisions for her. And in this dynamic, she just stays really small to avoid conflict. And he often will be a guy, like an old school guy who is like, emotions are weak. I'm never going to go there. And and so the interesting thing about this, that it has in itself healthy. No, that's not true. I mean, they all have. No, how can I say this? What I wanted to say is that in general, in a male-female relationship, it's good if the man is a leader and strong, and the woman knows how to be soft and feminine. But that's a difference to being passive. Yeah. Passivity is really just letting other people make decisions for you. Femininity means that you know how to relax, to, if he wants to take you on a nice date, just to enjoy it. You don't have to control everything. You can talk about conflicts calmly. You don't have to be afraid if he opens the door for you. It means that you're weak, like all that stuff, So it has sort of like, that's why from the outside it can seem functional. But if the point of it is that the woman is not living her own spirit, and destiny, it's totally bullshit. Yeah. And again, in the past, we have seen this dynamic like a lot. And this is also, I believe, why now we have a lot of the time that these dynamics around these super domineering, hypercritical, like super tough women who really don't know how to relax a little and just have a good connection with a man, because they are the daughters of these women, right? Or the granddaughters. They've seen this in the generations before, and they told themselves, never, ever, ever will this happen to me. So I'm become the toughest bitch. No one's gonna fuck with me, like that. But the thing is, when we swing the pendulum too far, it becomes unhealthy again. And that's exactly the point where we are at right now. And so a lot of the women that I work with, we actually work on being more relaxed, being more soft, being more understanding and forgiving, because they already are confident, strong women, and they actually have lost the ability to how to make compromises, and that they don't have to fight for every little thing. Because if you're too strong and too domineering, it also destroys the relationship. You have to have a healthy thing in the middle, and then it will work really, really well. And that is really the point of my coaching, to help you guys understand that you have to be incredibly self-aware to have good relationships, because otherwise you're so likely to fall into this trap, which is, I'm a good person, the other person is shit, the other person is unconscious, they are doing something wrong. And I did this for years and years and years. Like I was always thinking, no, Matt is the one, he needs to learn. Like I'm so good. I'm on a consciousness trip since I'm 15. And then again and again, I have to realize like, no, I have many unconscious parts still now. I do many unconscious behaviors and I better be humble and I better be gracious and I better be understanding, because I'm also just a human being. So yes, that I'm still learning it. Okay. So now you have learned all these dynamics. So which of these 6 dynamics have you experienced either now or in the past? I would love to know. And again, you can also put in the chat, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which you have experienced. Or you can just type it out however you want. And of course, also if the gender is switched, it's fine. Again, I just wanted to make it so that I can make these concepts understand a bit better. Okay, so we have 2 people, hopeful woman, uncommitted guy, 1 emotionally abusive woman, nice guy, and 2 hypercritical woman, silent man. Wow. 1 controlling woman, man child. Yeah. Interesting. So on my part, as I said, like, I think when I was younger, I maybe once had the hopeful woman, uncommitted guy, or maybe twice. I definitely have parts of me of a hypercritical woman, controlling woman, and I say a small part. If I'm really stressed, I could even be emotionally abusive, although I've really dealt this down the last years and I'm really working hard on it. And I hope Matt, you agree that I didn't go there the last, I would say, 3 years. I hope he doesn't say it's not true.
Sorry, Veronika, I missed that. What did you say?
I say I maybe in the past I had a bit of emotionally abusive woman in me, but I'm really trying to work on it. And I think the last 3 years it has not popped up. What would you say?
Yeah. I think for us that was the biggest one. And I was also a self-diagnosed nice guy, also for many years at the start of our relationship. I recommended a book in the chat, the No More Mr. Nice Guy book, Robert Glover. It's a very good one for the recovering nice guys. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, no, 100%. And as you can see, Matt is still a very kind guy. Like he's awesome and so beautiful human
Yeah.
being, but
But
he's not
but sometimes really needs a little bit putting in place. She's a wild horse that needs taming.
yeah, ain't that the truth?
Well, yeah.
So, as I said, lots also today is that these dynamics come from childhood. They were survival strategies in the past. So, again, me, anxious little Veronika, who is hypersensitive, grows up in a bit of a rude, loud family. I have adapted that I am controlling, that I am domineering, that I'm allowed, so I can survive in my childhood environment on a social level, right? And so this has become my template for relationships. So when I meet men, I'm gonna be like, here I am, watch me, and that's gonna be my strategy. And so we recreate those familiar dynamics even when they hurt us. And you have to really understand that in the past, this really helped you to survive. I tell you, in my family, people in the past were sometimes so freaking aggressive. If I didn't learn how to be very headstrong, I couldn't have made it. Matt now knows this. Like we live close to my parents, and he sees it every day. But of course, it has created very good things in my life. Like when things get tough, I can definitely have my voice, my opinion. That's wonderful. But then in relationships, I could be mean to my partner, which is terrible, and so on. And so again, they aren't your fault, but they are your responsibility to shift if you want to have healthy relationships. Like you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. But yeah, if you want to have an amazing, beautiful, connected relationship that's actually mutual and where you're not just screaming at each other, or you feel like you're living with the enemy, you should shift it and you should take responsibility for it. And yes, and so it's a journey to shift these patterns for sure, but it always starts with awareness. So that was really what this webinar was about. I hope that it could help you understand some of these dynamics and maybe understand your own role and your own life a bit more, so that you can start on this conscious relationships journey and have compassion for yourself and for other people, because again, these dynamics are all parts of an incredibly unhealthy society that we're part of. And we can only shift it together if we understand it in ourselves. And we have to be the person who starts with peace offerings to other people. And also learn boundaries, though. Like, don't let yourself be treated badly by other people. Recognize when a partner is not good for you and step out of the toxic dance and create new ways of relating, which we are doing here on these webinars. And I also do lots of YouTube videos, and I have a blog, and you can learn lots about these dynamics, because yeah, it's absolutely mind shifting.